Hello, Steve White, Trickboy 89 for Steve House 89. Well, Star Trek just keeps on giving, doesn't it? Okay, so after the horror of seeing the trailer of the musical episode, they surprised us by dropping the Lower Decks Strange New Worlds crossover episode. And I don't know if this show's making me dumber or not, but it wasn't as bad as I thought, but there were some huge problems. Production and story, just everything. It was the worst of both worlds. I mean, the characters were great. The actors did a really good job of playing themselves in the real world as opposed to just doing the voices and animating. I wish Rutherford had come in as well because I like him, but the actor looks nothing like the character, so I guess that was sort of, part of it. But the main issue, which makes no sense and I just cannot accept, is they switched between animated and live action. Now, I thought the idea was to bring the Lower Decks crew into that series. And I thought, well, that's fine. They can do that. Basically, we'll just see them live action. And, this is just a live action show. That's an animated show. So naturally, they exist in that world and they would be just normal live action people. So, but no, the episode starts off in animated and it's actually a different format, aspect ratio. And they have a scene where they're basically on a planet. They are observing a portal and they manage to get sucked through it and they end up on a really fake looking planet that, although it's quite beautiful, it's totally fake and looks basically just as fake as the animated version. And they, of course, are a problem and they take them back to the ship. But this is where the story issue comes in because they just let them run free. Now, the credits happen, and of course, we've switched to live action and we've switched to a different aspect ratio, but then the credits start and the credits are animated, which makes no sense because this is Strange New Worlds, not Lower Decks, so why would the credit sequence be animated? It almost could make some sense that the start is animated because that's where they came from, and the end, if they were in the future, that would be animated. It would kind of make sense in some sense, but are they trying to say that their universe is animated? So, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. It makes no practical sense. It makes no production sense. And then they go back to live action again, and that's the bulk of the episode. And Boilerman is actually pretty decent, although there is a weird thing with Spock where he keeps smiling and just being ridiculous and creepy, and he reacts to that, and he actually thinks at first it's something he's done to affect the timeline when Nurse Chapel tells him no, it's actually something I've done, I've affected him, and it's just like, so what? She breaks his heart and he goes back to having no emotions. Like, they've created this Spock they now have to fix, and it's a mess. So basically they spend the whole episode walking around telling everyone about themselves and totally contaminating the timeline with about 20 different things. And why they would do that, knowing what they do about time travel, because they know less about time travel in the TOS era, which they established means those old scientists era, which is ridiculous. But they keep doing it. And they help out, they do things they shouldn't do. There's just a lot of stupidity. Just a lot of stupidity. You can't think about the episode because it falls apart so quickly and has so many issues. Eventually, they convince some Orions who stole the portal to let them use it in exchange for them putting it down basically in history that they found the portal in the first place and they were scientists, to establish that the Orions are scientists. So they give that guy something he wanted, which was to be seen as something other than an Orion pirate. And there's a brief moment where they actually are going to change the current state because the grain that they traded for the portal was going to be used for Starfleet people who are now going to starve or something. So they were going to trade the thing back and get the grain for them, and just because they're like, I don't care about the future. I just want to help people now. And I'm like, it's so stupid. But basically, they send them back, and as soon as they walk through the portal, it goes to animated again, and which doesn't make sense because the credits weren't in their universe or their time, so why? It doesn't make any sense. And then we come back to live action again, or do we stay? Actually, I think we stay in animated, but then now all of a sudden, Strange New Worlds is animated. And they're drinking a drink that they learnt from, I've forgotten her name, the problem ensign, the difficult one who caused all the problems. And they actually get an ingredient. She didn't have all the ingredients when she made it on the ship, but they got some from the Orion, because it's an Orion drink. And they're drinking it, and suddenly it's like the drink has made them animated or something, and they're like, did I always look like this? Why are my eyes so big? And then Spock's arm is waving around. It's just, and Dr. M'Benga is like, what is in this drink? And then it ends there, and it's not really funny. Now, there was one funny part in the episode that made me laugh out loud. And I totally forgot what it was. But it was funny. But that was it. There was one laugh in the whole episode. And, I mean, there's a scene with Spock where he basically blows something up, and he basically is just leaving the vicinity because it's about to blow up, and he barely warns Bulma, who basically jumps. And I wasn't sure how they were going to manage the comic style, the way the characters operated in the animated series, versus Strange New Worlds. I just assumed they would make them real people and make them more realistic. And that would be the simple, smart approach that would make sense. This sense of making them like cartoons, but in the real world, but then showing both the cartoon world and the real world, it doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid. And all the time issues, where were the temporal police? Where were they? They showed up when Lan went back, and she was actually trying to warn them and be serious about this, but then that just disappears. It's just, the characters were great. The story was great. If you don't think about it, you don't actually apply reality to this, that, all the realities of time travel, if it existed, all the complications, all that sort of stuff. If you didn't take it seriously, you could almost enjoy it, but it is serious. It is a drama. It's not science fantasy. It's not a comedy. So this episode was just an absolute mess. The people making the show don't know what they are doing between musical episodes and half animated episodes that are half comedic. It's just, I tried so hard to give this show a chance. I really did. There's parts that I really like. The production design for this episode was beautiful. There were shots of the Enterprise that looked great. There were shots of the sets that were stunning. They literally took my breath away. I was like, oh, that is amazing. I'm like screen capturing everything. So there are parts of the show and parts of this episode in particular that were really good, and others that were abominable. And I'm like, how do you get one thing so right and another thing so wrong? It's just... I just want a Star Trek show that I can respect and enjoy, and not be disappointed by and frustrated by and have to tear apart every week because it's so bad or so stupid. It's made for the most stupid, just bottom baseline, lowest common denominator, idiot general public person, general audience member, who generic science fiction fan, or just general audience member. They just don't care so long as it's dumb enough for them to understand or think it's funny. It's just I've been talking for 9 minutes. I need to stop. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I thought this show would be decent. I thought they would just bring these guys into the real world, and if they just started off, the Enterprise crew goes down to a planet, and then they're studying something. All of a sudden, Boiler flies through, in real form, and then they send him back out, and we kept it in the universe, and maybe it would have been really interesting. Oh, of course, they were being cheap. Instead of actually building all the sets for the Cerritos or whatever it's called, and actually showing their world, but in Strange New Worlds, live action, they kept it animated. So maybe it was just a cheap thing. Because there's no logical reason for it. There's no artistic reason for it. They were just being cheap because they would have had to build all the sets. And they don't have any sets, of course, for that show. And they can't even use the Next Generation sets because, it's far enough removed from it. And then I just can't care anymore. I'm going to go. It's 10.5 minutes. I'm not getting to 11. God. I'm not looking forward to the next 3 episodes of this series. Bye.